What's up, man? How you been?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Me and my Southern California weather. It's a balmy 72 right now out there.
Oh, same here. Upstate New York. It's actually 81 degrees today.
Is it?
Yeah, February 24th. It's 81 today. So I beat you.
You did. You
Yeah,
did. Oh man, damn it.
it's so warm.
That was so hot. Oh well, whatever. That's fine. Anyway, so the real reason I wanted to bring you on is because I want people to sort of know you and I got to sit down for a good long while we were in London. And I got to see firsthand the level of like practice and hardcore work. And I knew a little bit about your history, right? I had picked up your book. Um, and then you were kind enough to share your DVD set. So I got to sort of know your work then. We kept in touch. But one of the main things that I got from you was that you sort of followed the traditional path of having like someone who mentored you, whose work you absorbed, and then eventually you kind of had to spread your wings and fly and be your own person, create your own character, create your own material. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that process.
Well, there's a lot to talk about there. And you're right. It was a big journey. I started playing piano and guitar before I got into magic. So when I was 7 years old, my mom started to get me into any of these hobbies that I may have been interested in. I expressed a little bit of interest in something, and she would then say, "Let's do it." If I put a Band-Aid on, she'd be like, "You can be a doctor, so let's do it." So same thing. I would make cereal or something, and you could be a chef. Here's a book on cooking. So I had one of those kinds of moms, a very supportive mother. So she got me into piano and guitar up front, and magic as well. We lived at a library at the time. We lived above in a library. If you lived at the library, maintained the library, you get to check books out. And I checked books out, and I never returned them, but that's barely the point of the story.
Yeah, that's a different
Yeah.
form of larceny. Yeah, you're fine.
So back in 1986, I checked that out and a whole bunch of other books over here. And I started to really enjoy the magic that was in these books. But with the magic, I just was able to read the book and learn a couple tricks. And I had this big challenge with my brother. My brother was the first person to show me a card trick. So I was always trying to then, he showed me one trick. And for the next like 15 years, I tried to show him every trick I learned to try to fool him. It took a long time to fool him. But the point is that I was only learning out of those books. With with music, I had a teacher, a formal teacher that I would go to weekly for lessons. They'd give me something to do. I would then do it and come back each week. And that's how you improve. Right. So I realized, as I continued to grow with magic, I didn't really have that same relationship. It was kind of up to me to find this stuff in books. And I could sense that I needed more. I needed more direction. Because it was really just a gamble. I would go buy some books and then read them and say, God, I don't really like anything in this book, or that doesn't look good. Or, the trick starts out and says, you need 14 decks of cards for this. And I'd go, well, that doesn't sound very good. So I kind of felt that need to have someone to help me with this stuff, but there wasn't anybody in my area, So eventually I graduated from books, well, not really graduated, but I wanted the next level. So I started getting DVDs and VHS tapes at the time. And I found some Martin Nash tapes. And I was like, this guy is amazing. Because in the books, it's just the text. And you have to kind of imagine what everything looks like, And it's complicated to figure some of the tricks out. I had like Royal Road and Expert Card Technique and stuff. So to actually see somebody on DVD that's not just doing a quick pick a card trick. Martin Nash was the first guy that had this character. I didn't know it at the time, but it was his character and his persona, and each trick had a premise and everything. And that to me was new. So I had no idea of the definition of that, but I knew watching him was different than watching the other guys. And so I learned as much Martin Nash stuff as I could. And then I felt I wanted more again. Where's more? Let me come back and get more knowledge. So I just took a shot at these Darwin Ortiz DVDs. And they came, and I watched them, and I was just blown away. I couldn't believe it, because the guy would shuffle the deck, and then at the end of the trick, it was back in order. And I'd be like, I saw him shuffle. So on his technique alone, he was fooling me. Just on his technique. Like I saw other guys do shuffles, but I could see through what was happening. But on his stuff, I just couldn't I couldn't see the moves.
Right.
So the technical stuff was so far ahead, you know.
From Nash,
So
or just from what you had seen up to that point? What was it?
yeah, well, I remember I was only in books and stuff. So my shuffle work was only what I could see, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking this is okay. But then when I saw someone else do it much better, I was like, well, that does look a lot better. But then to see Ortiz do it and a lot of the things that he did, it was just, I just couldn't see it. I was so fooled by it. So I started to think, man, I want my stuff to look like that. It looks really good. And the same thing, he had a character and each trick had premise and they were so enjoyable. The tricks were very funny. It wasn't just, here, pick a card, now I'll do this with it. And then now look, now the aces became a royal flush or something. There was a lot of story involved and I really enjoyed that as well. So I put 2 and 2 together in my early 20s and realized, hey, wait a minute, you know, what if this guy teaches? Because I have a great relationship with my guitar teachers, piano teachers and such. So I'll reach out to, see if I can reach out to this guy. So I called a phone number on one of the DVDs, thinking it was the A1 Multimedia or whatever, thinking I was going to talk to them.
Right.
And see if I could find a way to email this guy or get in touch with him somehow, whatever like that. And Darwin picks up the phone, you know? and I'm
Did you
like,
freak out? Did you?
oh yeah, oh, it's
such
a bad, yeah. You're what? And he's like, this is Darwin Ortiz, and I'm like, you're the guy?
Yeah, there's only one of you.
You're the guy on the thing, and he's like, yeah. It's, you know, one of those moments, and I just was starstruck, you know. So after I got that out of my system for 15 minutes, I then started to, you know, it's just nothing but praise, and he was just over there waiting for me to finish.
Like rolling along.
And then he said, well, make a list of a few things you want to talk about and I'll be willing to see you, you know, at such and such date. And the problem was I live in New York and he lives down in DC. So it's like a 7-hour drive down there, you know, but I didn't care. I just said, all right, I'm going to drive down there for a 2-hour lesson. So I came down there with, you know, a laundry, I could probably 30 things expecting to learn on this list. And in that first lesson, we only covered 3 things, you know, but they were so in depth. That was the eye-opening experience for me that, okay, on this one particular false cut or something, I have 4 pages of notes just on this one thing, you know, and that was amazing because I thought he was just going to say, okay, do this and okay, you're set. But it was so involved. And then over time, I started realizing that each move I can spend, you know, 10 pages of notes just on one little thing. And there's so much more than what you may suspect when you first start learning a slate. And also that's different from the books. The books just say, you know, do this, then do this, then do this. And
it's all linear. It's all like, it's like following a recipe, but there's nothing about the flavor, nothing about anything.
Exactly. So when you start realizing how you can analyze every single beat and then the theory and thinking behind each beat, and then all the polish and the moves and how to incorporate this slate in the right place and what's the context, you know, it's such a huge subject. So that's when I realized we can talk about the Zarrow Shuffle for 2 hours and revisit it for 4 more lessons, all 2-3 hour lessons just on one particular move. And that's how in depth some of this stuff can be. So that was a big eye-opening experience for me to learn how much this guy put into all of that.
Okay. What would you say? You said that you were also involved in music. Did that have an effect on like how you were taking the information in?
I learned from piano lessons and guitar lessons, music lessons in general. I had this big epiphany when I was like 18, 19 years old or something, because I would always just practice the way I wanted. Mm-hmm. And that was it. I would just the teacher would give me a bunch of things to learn. I would just kind of do whatever I wanted. And I didn't see the best results. I got good at the things that I wanted to get good at, but the things that the teacher was telling me, you need improvement here, you know, whatever. And around 16, 17, 18 or something like that, for some reason, I decided to do what the teacher told me to do, the drill, you know? And by magic, you know, a week later, I went from not being able to do something to being able to do something. And it happened like overnight, you know? So I was like testing myself and my teacher. Like I wanted to come back to it and be like, hey, I tried
it didn't work. Yeah.
And it didn't work.
As you're juggling 7 balls. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is with piano, you have a lot of independence and because your left hand's doing one thing, your right hand's doing a completely different thing, and each is in its own independent rhythm. So when you first start these things, it feels impossible. Juggling is a great analogy. It's just impossible to do. And you think this isn't possible. So you practice just the left hand, then you practice just the right hand, and then you sluggishly try to put them together. And it's very cumbersome and clunky, and you can't do it on Monday. You can't do it on Tuesday. Wednesday, you kind of did it, but not really. And then all of a sudden, by magic, on Thursday morning, you sit down and the hands just do it,
Right.
And it's like a magic trick, really, because it's like, what the hell, I couldn't do this yesterday.
Right.
So, and then I came back that week later and said, Dan, my piano teacher, you're not going to believe this. I did the thing and it worked. Watch this. And it took me a week. And he's like, you should have been doing that 5 years ago. And, you know what I mean? And I remember thinking like, man, I really messed up, because I would basically go home, not practice all week, just kind of improvise and do the things I wanted to do. And then the day before the lesson, I'd sit down and crash, to try to cram for the test, kind of a thing.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I think almost all, kids in school, and that's just a kind of a thing that happens naturally. But that was a big moment for me. And I realized from then on that I just have to do a little bit every day, even though I don't see results. And that thing's online all over the place, but just do a little every day and you'll see better results over time. But I had firsthand experience with it,
Yeah, it's different. Like now that you can taste the results and everything and sort of.
Oh yeah, once you know
yourself.
that, yeah, you're not looking at the finished product anymore. You're saying, let me just put in my time for today. And I was able to bring that approach to Darwin helped me out with it, but I was able to bring that approach to my guitar, my card work, and realize that I just need to do a little bit every day and I'll get better. But me being so obsessive with the card work, I did my 10 hours. I didn't care. He said, just do like a hour a day. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Maybe you don't understand how much Red Bull I keep at home.
Yeah. I would get up in the morning, and the very desk that I learned on, that I practiced on, is the one I'm sitting at right now. I used to have these 3 drawers just filled with cards. Now they're back there. But I used to just put them in here and get up in the morning, have coffee, pull a deck of cards out, and just shed from 10 in the morning until 12, 1 o'clock in the morning every day.
Wow.
On all the stuff that he did, and take notes, and it just became a full-time job,
Now, how much of it do you feel like was you just trying to learn what he had, and how much of it was trying to like explore the ideas? Like, when did it get to the point where you felt comfortable sort of adding to the conversation? How long did you feel you
It took a while, and that's how our brains are all wired differently. That's just normal, but people learn differently. And I came from a music background, knowing that I need to emulate this in order for me to understand it. I need to just copy it. And because that's what music is. When you sit down, when a 7-year-old kid goes to a piano teacher, they don't say, okay, create a classical piece. No, you copy the masters, and copy these simple tunes, Beethoven, Mozart, and things. And then over time, you'll be able to create your own. So with Darwin, I really went through each sleight and learned everything down to the T, started learning the routines from the books, learning scripting and doing all that stuff, and just going right from the books. Because it was easy to do. First of all, I didn't have to think for my own. I just copied. And I was copying material that I knew worked. It was a trusted thing that worked. I didn't have to go out there and not only try to create on my own, but then hope this is working theoretically and I'm doing all the right things with my script and presentation. No, this is a finished, polished product I could just go out and do. So for a couple of years, I really did, maybe 3 years, 4 years or something, I just did his material and his sleights, and I ended up copying all of his mannerisms and things, all right, we're going to try something,
Yeah,
exactly. I often wondered how, what is one of his lines? A surgeon may find your card, that kind of thing. So, and then I realized that when I would perform, there's a real me inside. And over the years, little lines would start coming out that were me.
Or you, okay.
Yeah, and I could feel those because they weren't scripted. I'm on script, and I'd pop out and be me for a little bit and then jump back into the script. And I realized the audience really laughed at some of those moments. And I started realizing that the real me was starting to kind of poke through. And even watching my DVD set, the Confident Deceptions DVD set, I'm so dry back then. I'm just doing the trick. It's just like I say, hey, I'm fascinated by XYZ. Let me give you an example with cards. Here, do the things I'm asking you to do, and here's a magic trick. It would just be this kind of thing. And when I watch myself perform now, it's just
It's completely different. Yeah.
it's this what
Because I was there when you were performing,
Yeah.
when we were in London at the session. And
yeah, it's my own character, it's my own jokes, and I'm very free to jump off script whenever I want and have a lot of fun, and with a lot darker humor than Darwin. I'm really aggressive. Yeah, I like the lines here, and I'm like way out there.
Yeah. You don't think you could go any lower, but Jason, he brought a shovel.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that today it's there's almost, I mean, Darwin's my foundation, but I've learned how to create my own stuff and still stay true to his template. His foundations are still all there. All the theories correct. Each trick is justified, motivated. Each trick is scripted. Everything has a reason. All that stuff's still there. It's just now my own version of that. So that's why I enjoyed going through that process, because it was just a great guidance to know that even though I don't know what the hell I'm doing, I can copy this and trust that it's right, and learn how to present in front of an audience, and learn how to deliver lines, and memorize a script and all that, knowing it's not mine, but saying, at least this is right.
That's cool. Okay. All right. Yeah, because something that I noticed when you released your book, Game Changer, and I realized that a lot of the work that's in there, like even when you're not overtly describing all of the foundational stuff that you have, it's kind of like infused into it so that people kind of get it by happenstance. You know,
The
like
book will be way too long if I went into all of that. So I'm laying
it's big.
out.
It's already big. It's
everything. Yeah, Tony Cabral calls it the lunchbox.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yes, I have a very strict set of rules that I follow when I perform, and I hardly ever do any kind of shut up and watch magic. I do that kind of stuff in a walk around environment when you don't have the platform to tell story and stuff like that. But my real, where I feel like I shine, is in a theater show, right? I got 150 people watching, but just the lights are on me. I have their full attention, and I can tell stories and do all sorts of things and have suspense and tension and drama and humor, all those things cooking. When you're doing a walk around show, it's, there's a DJ playing, and you got to scream over the music. So you don't have an opportunity to do that stuff. So when I do have my platform, I like to have these tricks going through the correct procedures and theory, and all that. So each trick has to have that built into it. And in the book, all those tricks follow those rules. And at certain points in the trick, I'll point out, okay, here's my reasoning for doing this or whatever. But if you sit down and do those routines, you can do that same thing that I went through with Darwin. Just do this and trust that this is going to work. This is going to reach your audience. You're going to grip them right from the beginning. The opening few lines are going to pull them in. Then you're going to add even more to that. Once you have their attention, you pull them in even further and say, you know what? You're going to win 10 grand if I can't do this. I mean, who the hell's going to leave the show if you're betting some guy 10 grand you can do something? And then you say, as a matter of fact, I'll be blindfolded. I'm going to have my handcuffs, hands handcuffed under the table. And as a matter of fact, instead of finding 4 cards, I'll find 8 in less than 60 seconds, And so now the audience is even pulled in even further. And then there's humor and there's tension and suspense, and it all builds up. And then there's some amazing climax at the end where you achieve what you needed to achieve in some unexpected way. Each trick kind of falls into that kind of a similar template to that. But if you follow those rules, the audience will be on the edge of their seats. They're there to this is the most fascinating thing they've ever seen, that you get that kind of emotion and gasps and things like that. And that just doesn't compare to, hey, pick a card. All right, put it back. Now let's spell your name.
Well, but I'd like, I run the joke that, basically for the longest time in the world, all of my card magic was one complex lost and found game. Like it was very much like tag.
And you know what? Those pick a card tricks are great. That's our foundation that I'm pointing over here because my library's over here. But they're encyclopedia of card tricks, and there's so many of the discarding books. It's very common to have a card selected and find it. But when you watch or look through my material, there are tricks where a card is selected and you found it, but that's not what the people walk away with. People walk away going, like, for example, in my card at any number, somebody picks a card, and then at the end, they name a number and a card, and it ends up at that position. But they don't walk away saying, how do you do that? They walk away saying, that guy memorized a deck of cards instantly. You know, he did insane math. He put the card in and shuffled, and he knew where it was the whole time. And then he didn't do a single thing except shake the deck like this, and he moved the 4 of hearts to the 34th position. You know, they walk away with this kind of Rain Man feeling. Like, how did this guy learn all this with a deck of cards?
Right.
How's that
Where
possible?
they remember the narrative,
saying,
not the details. Where
yeah, they don't walk away saying, "Oh, I picked a card and he found it." No, that's not what I want them to walk away with. I want them to walk away with the character and what I've devoted my life to, my passion, and I'm sharing that with them. That's what's happening.
Okay, so that brings up a really good point, because that was one of the things that we just went off about. You know, we started talking Robert McKee and story and everything. And what is your take? Like, I understand the practice of the hardcore slights and everything, but the practice and the development of your character and the narrative inside your magic, what was that process? Was it basically experimentation? Did you go out like assuming, okay, this is what I have to do in order to get this reaction, and then you constantly had to tweak it? Or was it more like
it comes in steps, where how this character develops. So, you know, when you watch a movie, you can identify with a character based on what the guy does and what he says and how he gets out of tricky situations. That's how we know, okay, that was within his character or that was out of character. James Bond, we can list off all of his traits, you know, and that's his character. We're defined by what we do, right? And I felt when I was doing early card magic that I wasn't really defining that character very much, you know, and that's where you walk somebody through a card trick. Now you put this here, now we'll put the jacks here, now we'll do this. There's nothing really there. So I started realizing that when Mike Vincent gave me a great tip, you know, your stage character is you, but exaggerated, and you should pull real life experiences into your show. So when I was younger, I showed my brother some card tricks, and he gave me a tough time, but not anything worth talking about, you know, presenting about. But of course, when I present tricks now, when I talk about my brother, he's this villain. You know, he's this terrible person that mixes the cards face up and the face down, and his friends gang up on me, and they do all these terrible things, and I'm the underdog that has to achieve, you know. So those experiences happen to me, but I'm blowing them way out of proportion for the show. I've been in home games before where I have moved, and it was a terrifying experience when the first couple times I did it. My heart was thumping out of my chest, you know, and I did it. But when I tell those stories as I'm performing, there's tremendous humor, and instead of making $250, it's $2,500. You know, see what I mean? I've counted in casinos before, but Turning Stone, an hour and a half away in Verona, New York. Of course, when I'm on stage, it's Montenegro. Here's something you can do. I made 50 grand doing this last week, and if you can do the numbers right, simple math, you guys can make. You could quit your day job tomorrow and do it. So, you know, and people, I'm painting that image that when people leave the show, they're wondering, what does this guy do when he's not doing these gambling demonstrations? Is he out in Vegas and because he's doing this? Is he running some sort of underground con thing? You know, I want them to have that depth. That character is this fascinating thing that they can think about. So each trick has that little thing in it where I start the trick out by saying something that defines my character a little bit, not on the nose. Hey, I was in jail once. You know, that's on the nose.
Yeah.
You want to say, you know, oftentimes
I'm still on the run from the law.
yeah. You know, oftentimes some of the complicated card sleights that I learned take years and years and years. Here's one that took 5 to 10. I learned it when I was in Joliet. Well, that's a whole different. You know, so it's a little joke. It's a joke, but people wonder.
Because you're the type of guy that could say it with a straight face and like, oh, San Quentin, that's fine.
Yeah, there's a little bit of humor. Well, there's a little bit of truth in every single joke. You know, one of the jokes that I use that is an example of painting this imagery is, you know, people often ask me if I've ever seen any violence in a card game. You know, card cheats taking an extraordinary amount of money from other people, so there can be some tensions sometimes. And one time, I saw 2 guys holding up a card cheat for all of his money, so I decided to help. And that poor card cheat, he didn't stand a chance against the 3 of us. But it, you know, so what is that? It gets a laugh, right? But what does it say about me, my character? I see some guy being held up for all of his winnings, and I decide to say, you know what, I want a piece of this money too. That any normal person would say, hey, you know, stop hurting that person, or I'm going to call the police. But I look at that situation and say, cash in on this.
Yeah,
That's
I got that.
character development, and the fact that something so brutal as a knife point holdup, I can look at that and find humor in that situation. That's another character development. You know, the suit that I wear, the props that I pull out, every single thing is thought of because I want a nice crystal clear image of what it is I am without spelling it out for them on the nose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, without overtly, and I think maybe that's something that I, for clarification's sake, for those who are watching this, that developed over time, including the props
Oh
and
yeah,
everything,
that
and what
doesn't.
the character became. Like, you didn't come in with a master plan and say, you know, I'm not
Little
changing for
pieces,
anyone.
little pieces at a time. I'll see something in a movie and I'll say, I like that. How Tony Stark responds to something. There's a great scene where the movies are terrible, but there's some scene where he's talking to a little kid, and the kid says, you know, my dad died, and blah blah blah. And Tony Stark, he's Iron Man. He's like, he says something about go get me a tuna sub or something like that. I need a tuna sub, these tools, and this other thing. And the kid goes into this big sob story about his dad dying away. And then Tony Stark just turns around and says, "That's great, but where's my sub?" You know? Yeah. And the audience gets great. It gets a great laugh. And I realize that that's such a brutal joke, but the audience really loves that. And I'm not even joking. In the theater, as I'm watching this, thinking to myself, you know, I have to find a way to take the essence of that, not that joke, but the essence of that. And that's the same thing. I'm seeing somebody get held up by knife point, and I'm like, hey, let me get some, I want in on this. And so one by one, here and there, I would find places to put some of those jokes to establish my character a little bit, like the womanizing on the road touring guy that's always getting the, you know, easy with the girls, you know. There's that joke I do in the Magic Castle set. People always come up to me and ask me the same questions after each show. What's it like to be you? And, you know, how fast is your car? And, you know, that one lady was like, why does my kid look like you? You know, lady, I don't know. You know, show me the DNA test results. It's just leave me alone. You know, like that's nothing for me. This woman comes up to me and says, why does my kid look like you? What does that say? You know, that says I've got some history, some dark history out there. So again, it's just a joke, but those little things are all adding up to what this person really is. And your show becomes a very, very much more interesting show because they love you and the character and the jokes and the roasting and things like that. In addition to that, the cards are doing amazing things as well. The cards are helping act out what it is you're doing. But really, they enjoy your company and they're hanging on your words when you do that kind of stuff.
How do you feel about like the magic versus the story? Like, where's the balance for you between telling the story and doing the magic and not letting one distract from the other?
You have a great point there. And that's, there should be, if you're interested, if you're watching this and you're going, okay, this is speaking to me. I want to build upon my character instead of just doing card tricks where I tell the person what to do and a magic trick happens. You should watch the Magic Castle set. Because my Magic Castle set, it's just if you search my name, the Magic Castle will pop up. In that set, you can see defined lines where the jokes stop and now we're in magic mode. Like, I gotta bring the audience back to the magic because I don't want to lose the magic. So there is a balance. And if I'm having too much fun with audience banter and character and handing out business cards to pretty girls and saying all the one-liners, it's starting to turn into stand-up and there's no magic. And if I do too much magic, now they're not really getting kind of the real me.
Well, like what you said, like it comes off as dry because there's not enough of.
There's nothing going on. Yeah, I'm just doing. I'm saying, here, put the card here. They got to wait 3 minutes for you to tell them to do a bunch of stuff. Now you put the card here. Now sign it. Now do this. Now do that. Now I'm going to do this and now this. Right. You know, and they go, wow, how'd that happen? But if you add in all that character stuff, it's so much more entertaining for them to watch. And also, you can kind of predict where things are going or see how you'll handle situations better if they understand who you are. If they understand who you are, the trick makes a lot more sense. So if you watch that Magic Castle set, you can see we are in joke, character development, humor mode to keep the show rolling, and then like a sharp line comes down, and now we are in magic mode. Like, watch this.
Everyone
trick.
focus, watch.
Yes,
Yeah.
because you need to have the audience understand the conditions of the tricks. So conviction is very important in Magic. The audience needs 100% conviction that the aces are face up in the deck or under the spectator's hand or whatever. So if you're out there making jokes at the wrong time, you're starting to hurt the Magic, because you'll get to the end and people go, well, wait, no, she had those cards. And you go, no, they were in the box. You know?
Yeah,
so
now you're arguing over how amazing it should be. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's your fault, because you were bouncing around and not being clear. So there is a very defined line where you have to control this crowd, have fun with them, but then bring them back and say, watch this now, do the magic. And then once the magic is done, you can relax, be yourself for a second, and then go back into the magic. And you'll just see the audience is throwing me all sorts of curveballs in that set. And I'm able to knock down some comments, because they got to be shut down super quick, like a nice quick comeback, and then right back to the magic. Okay. Because if I have too much fun with that person, they don't really care about the magic anymore.
Yeah,
and trust
or they'll
me,
lose the train of thought, or like whatever, all that work that you did, it just all sort of falls away.
Yeah, I don't want to name names, but there's some people that it'll be the jokes that start getting too involved, and the magic starts to lose a little bit of its power. And then the other thing is flourishes can do the same thing. An ace assembly, it should just be like the aces are out there and they end up here. But there's sometimes where there's so much flipping around and spinning and twisting. I don't know, was that ace in this packet? Was it going that way? Was it going this way? And I can't even follow where the aces should have been. I don't even know if I saw a magic trick or not. So the flourishes are a visual distraction, and I'm losing the magic. Just like your character can be so much of a distraction that the magic starts to get lost. So you have to really find that perfect balance, and that comes from experience.
Okay. Well, if you're up for it, I wanted them to see sort of what the hardcore practice looks like, and from that aspect, mean how it is that you broke it down, because a lot of the skills that you do are legitimately, it's just hours in. There is no, it's not even that there's a secret other than time, focus, investment of energy.
Yeah, it's kind of like going to the gym. There's no shortcut. You know, you have an image in your mind and say, you know, I want to be shredded like that. The answer is you have to eat right and go to the gym every day, and you can't slip up. And you just have to do it every single day, and you have to be committed and devoted and keep doing it, even though you don't see the results right away. And that right there is the definition of insanity. You keep going every day and there's no change at all, but you have to commit to it. Say, I trust the process, and just keep doing it. So there was something about watching Ortiz run up a hand. So he would just shuffle the deck a few times and deal out the aces. And I said to myself, what's the trick here? I can't figure out how he's doing this. Like, it's not a switch. How can somebody just shuffle the aces into position? So I knew that it was some sort of gimmick or something like that. And then I realized one day that he's really doing this. He's specifically shuffling a number of cards, and he's not even looking when he's doing it. And something about that really made me say, I want to be able to do that. And then finding out that hardly anybody can do that was yet another.
Oh, now you're on it.
Motivating factor. Yeah. And I suffer from that disease. The moment I can't do something, it makes me want to work harder it's like challenging myself. Like, I'll give up on it, and then 5 minutes later, I'm sitting right back down. It's like, it can't be this hard. I've got to be able to do it. So riffle stacking was one of those things. And then I was just drawn to all the gambling stuff. How cool is that? Bottom deals and second deals and center deals, all that stuff. And then to find out that they're super, super hard 5-year moves, 10-year moves and things to get them down pat. It was a therapeutic thing for me to sit down and practice all those things. And then I realized that my toolbox was getting bigger. Instead of just having your common magician sleights, I had all this access to all this other stuff. All these really complicated sleights that were meant for the poker table. And what I was able to do is take a lot of that and add it into the magic stuff to allow me to do even more crazy miracles. And that's I'm bringing that gambling stuff just in the magic. And when the audience can see that the cards are really being mixed and really being dealt, they're going to believe all that stuff, but I'm in control of everything because I'm using a lot of the gambling technique. So it just developed the technique a lot more, which gave me access to more effects and different premises and things like that.
Do you feel like the character that you have developed because of that toolbox, or did you want the toolbox because you wanted the character?
It's 50-50. What I didn't really finish my point on the character. That stuff happened over time. I would just find new little areas to explore on stage and see what's working. The mob stuff was always good laughs there. You know, some people come up and tell me how I do these tricks afterwards. You know, some people tell me all the theories. You know, this one guy last week said, "Oh, you've got magnets in your hands." You know, so you know, I sent a couple guys to tune him up, and he won't be a problem anymore. So we're good. Anyway, does anyone here want to tell me how they think I did that trick? You know, I mean, who's gonna raise their hand and say, "Oh, I think," you know? So those are just and delivered with that super dry humor, you know, and
yeah, there's none of this. There's none of the you know.
Yeah. It's you know, some of these lines, you know. The souvenirs are $50. You know, that's yours. You can keep that. And I'm joking. I don't come collect money from you. You know, I have people that do that stuff for me. You know, it's like, oh yeah, and it's the audience just eats that stuff up. You know,
yeah. Wait, what?
So obviously a joke, and so that's why it's so exaggerated that the people don't take you real. They see the character, they enjoy the character, and so those mob lines got a lot of good laughs. Then there was a lot of other areas that I just explored and kind of found out what worked for me. And then also seeing great comedians perform, and not lifting their work. It's finding jokes that they did. Then I'd say, how can I adapt something like that to my show? Right. That was a big one for me. Taking character lines from movies, one-liners from movies, and saying that line hit like a truck. How can I adapt that somewhere in my show, something similar to that? Now, in the movie, they're talking about, you know, drugs or guns or whatever. Fine, I'm going to pull that in and say, okay, cards, gambling, money. How can I
massage that?
Similar joke. Yeah, how can I make a similar joke to that and have it play well? And how can I, before that joke hits, how can I set that up earlier in the trick? So not only is the trick going on, I'm thinking, how do I foreshadow that moment there so that I can deliver that similar punchline later, and it all kind of makes sense. So that's the process there. And one by one, those jokes and things start to fall into place, and then you develop your character just keeps getting stronger and stronger the more you do that kind of stuff.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, if you're up for sort of showcasing what it is that we've been talking
for showing off, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. If you'd be
yeah, let me just get my Mickey Mouse magic book out of the way so we can do some
work. I knew you were.
We all start somewhere.
That's right.
All right, what would you like to see?
So one of the things that you're sort of known for is being able to do like the sequential, going stack 1, stack 2, stack 3, all the way up. I honestly don't know what your top number is. The last time we spent, it just kind of kept going.
Well, the bigger basketball theory is something that I enjoy working with a lot. If you feel comfortable with 9 and 10, when you're on stage and someone asks for 6 or 7, it's not a big deal because you've working at the bigger numbers. So Tiger Woods, for example, when they're on the putting green, the hole is this big. So they practice there. And that way, when you go out on the course, the hole's like 3 times as big, and it feels like it's much easier to hit. Basketball players use a medicine ball, so that when they get the real thing, it feels lighter. Baseball, you swing 5 bats, so when you get the real one, it's a lot simpler. So that I've brought that formula and thinking into riffle stacking, second deals, bottom dealing with 65 cards. You can barely hold the deck. Yeah, so then when you go back to a regular deck of 52, it feels like, well, this is easy. So that's not mine. That's been around forever. But I try to find some of that thinking.
Some of those principles that are kind of universal. Okay. Yeah, I remember like, Chad Nelson, when you're learning clip shift, and he tells you that you need to do it with 2 decks, because then when you do it with anything else, it's just easy breezy, So
same concept.
Okay. All right. So how about we do this? If you'd be willing to, just show us what it looks like in sequential order. And then if you're up for me just yelling out a couple random numbers,
Well, the sequential exercise starts out just as simple as what you may suspect it is. I just keep adding one more card each time. So a lot of these drills I had to invent myself. I've invented them myself, and then over time I see some other YouTube channels or Instagram channels where people do similar drills. So these are easy to figure out on your own. But basically with riffle stacking, you just have to kind of think about, what am I struggling with? And what kind of exercise can I practice to solve that problem? So one of the first ones that I came up with was just to do sequential, just by adding a single card on top, right? So that's not hard. Now I'm just going to add 2 cards on top and just keep going sequentially like this. And eventually you're going to find your spot. There's 3, there's 4. You're going to find your spot when you can't do it. See if we can do 4 by feel. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you just keep going until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, that wasn't looking. I don't want to show up.
Yeah. Let's just bring that up right now. He was staring at my.
Something so amazing that I have to bring it up myself. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can see that as I'm going up. Let's see if we can get an 8. Oh, that's not 8. Hey, there we go. This might be 9. Oof. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So what I'm doing there is I'm building up from 1 all the way up to 8. That's my usual practice.
Okay.
And I'm also starting to develop a feel. Now you notice when I went for 8, I knew I missed it right away. And that was something that was a big thing for me, because when I first learned this, I was just kind of in the dark going like, what? I don't even know where do I even start with this? Yeah. And I literally just guessing, kind of like going into a completely pitch black room and trying to throw a free throw into, or throw a dart to a dartboard. I have nothing. But the first thing I started to notice was when I knew I wasn't right, that was the first thing I'm starting to develop a feel for it. So I might not be able to get the right answer right away, but I'm starting to sense, oh, that was too much or not enough. And then the next part of that was saying, oh, that's right. So let's see if we can hit 8 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So I was able to take 9 just from a moment ago and say, the moment I hit it, I knew right away it was a little too heavy. Roll the tape back. I said it was 9. But then this time, when I said, let's see if I can hit 8, I was able to take what I felt from 9 and bring it back.
That as a basis of.
Yeah, right. So that was the first drill that I did, just these consecutive things from 1 to 8. But I realized there was a big problem with that, because that's not the way it works in the real world. If you're sitting in a real game, you have to come up with these numbers on the spot. I don't get to practice.
There's no comparison. You don't get to go stair step your way up, right?
And it's kind of like a shooting range, where if the target's at 25 feet and you shoot there for 30 minutes or an hour or something like that, and then you move the target back 5 feet and shoot there for an hour, move the target back for 5, you're not really coming in fresh. You're not coming into this fresh at all. Then you go out, you're a police officer, you just finished your training, you go out into the field and you get into a tricky situation. Are you going to tell your guy, hey, listen, I know you're going to run out of the bar right now, but can you just stand still at 25 feet and let me shoot at you for a half hour before you start running 5 feet away? You don't know where that person's going to be, right, where the bullets are coming and all that. So you have to really be on your point there. So look at a rookie cop that's just been doing some basic training versus a guy that's been out there for 20 years. The guy that's been out there for 20 years has an instinct, and he's just relying on his training, and it's going to work without even him thinking about it. So the riffle stacking drills can't just be sequential. You have to do the thing where you mix the numbers up, and that way you're getting these fresh numbers for the first time. And then you can trust, once you get that drill down, trust your instincts, and it'll just work. It'll just work.
That makes sense. My twin brother used to do archery, and that was something that he had sort of taken on, was the fact that eventually, instead of leaning on the experience that you have from a minute ago, you're leaning on the experience that you've built up over years and years and years of just hardcore work, where, it's like when dead cutters, they know what 10 feels like, whether they've just cut 9 or just cut 11, they know what 10 feels like,
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, whatever.
Yeah, you know what I say. Yeah, I would have been. Oh my God! I'm just.
Give me a number. Just give me a number.
Okay. Do 15.
15.
15.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You can add that one. 1,
That's,
2,
yeah,
3,
it's
4,
like-
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. No trick.
Yeah.
So I was in the hospital for like 3 weeks back in 2007. And guess what I did for 3 weeks straight? Exactly that.
Did you
And
get
it
that?
literally, and I've retained it ever since. I had nothing to do in the hospital. I would cut off a group of cards, say it, count it down. And it was just that, big numbers, little numbers, all over the place. And I use this, I don't want to get too far into the method here, but there's a couple of magician fooler things I do where I'm using just that. And the person watching, it's a borrowed deck kind of thing. And they just go, you know, I followed most of it, but that one part, when you knew there was 38 cards there, how'd you do that part?
You know what's funny is that I'm terrible at the feel. I never kept the feel. I'm great at the sight. I'm great at being able to estimate on sight.
It's both. And that's the same thing with riffle stacking. I'll solve it for you. You need to do more without looking, and it'll come. It's as simple as that. 2 minutes a day. Do 2-3 minutes a day of cutting without looking, based on feel, and you'll develop that feel for the thing that you're missing. The reason you don't get it is because you don't practice it.
Fair. That's fair. That's okay. All right. So are you up for me yelling out a couple randos and seeing?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Let's do 4.
That's an easy one. 2, 3, 4.
Okay. 7.
Ooh, 7. Making me work for it.
That's right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
3.
Oh, watch me screw that 3 up. I'll do it without looking. 1, 2, 3. So it's not, and it should feel effortless. It should feel like you should. Am I over here going like, you know? No, it's just effortless because you're looking at 10 years of doing the thing that you just asked me to do.
And
so
you don't. That's the other thing is you don't wobble and you don't pause.
No.
I don't see this with your.
No. This is something you just do. That whole thing where you gauge it. That's not riffle stacking. That's you in real time adjusting what it is that you're doing. Real riffle stacking means you pull the trigger and it's done. You just let the cards fall and you have to have it happen on the first shot. There's no adjustment phase, is what I'm saying. You just when you first start out, you have to do the adjustment to build the feel, but you have to know this is a phase that you will leave and just get better at it.
Did you, when you were doing that, when you were getting rid of that adjustment phase, did you have to just like quit it cold turkey and see if you had the feel, or was it more like it slowly went away over time?
I don't mean to brag.
Oh God. Okay. Listen, I don't have that much space on my computer to record that.
But I, for some reason, I knew right away that was not the way to go.
Okay.
And so I just cut that stuff out right from the beginning, because I knew when I first started it that the big complaint about it was slowing down and looking, and people you read magic forums and stuff, and people would be like trashing somebody else's bot or stacking because of the hesitations at the top. So when I first did it, whether it's right or wrong, I just jumped right to the finished product of saying, let's get these to fall the right way. So I never kind of went through that process. And there's a lot of things that I just never had to learn. Piano, for example, there's a sustain pedal. When you push the chord down, your foot pushes the pedal down, you can release your hands and the notes will continue. I never learned that. I just kind of subconsciously figured out that that's how you keep the notes going when you need to lift your hands someplace else. And it wasn't until I started teaching, maybe 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I was teaching piano on the side when I quit the road. And I realized that students didn't know how to use the thing. So I had to spend weeks teaching people how to use it. And I remember thinking, I didn't have to learn any of this stuff. And there were tons of things like that I just kind of learned on the side without really thinking about it. Your subconscious kind of solves these things. So in riffle stacking, it happened with my bottom deal, my second deal. There's lots of little components that I only found out from teaching other people, that they really struggle with some certain aspect of it. And I remember thinking like, well, you just do it. So your subconscious plays a huge role in this stuff.
Okay. And
what'll happen is you have to self-analyze and reflect on problems. I mean, my stage character is just nothing but ego. But the real me, I assess things and I'm honest with myself. And that looks like shit. So I have to look at those problems, assess them, and think, how do I solve these things? And sometimes it never even makes it into your conscious. You're just aware of, there's a self-awareness, and you are able to solve certain things without really thinking about it. But you have to do this stuff every day to get to the stuff that I'm talking about.
That's
You
why I was
eat,
just going to say.
drink, breathe, sleep, cards, and this stuff will solve itself.
And you, like what you said, if it's subconscious, it means that you won't know. You're not going to see the end result, because in a lot of ways it's unconscious competence that's being slowly developed. Like,
it's something that, the quote about it's just passion. If you're passionate about something, it's not going to feel like work. You're excited to solve things. You're excited to identify things that need help, take notes on them, write all day, read all day. I go to bed at night thinking about tomorrow. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have coffee, and then I'm going to go tackle that problem. I want to solve that, whatever that thing is. And I'm excited to do that. And I wake up in the morning, make my coffee, come sit down at my space, and just roll up my sleeves and work on that thing. Speaking of that, that reminded me one thing. If you're into this, if you're watching this and you're saying, all right, I'm down with this craft and I want to really pursue magic card technique and get as good as I can get. One huge thing for me, and I don't know how much time we have left, but this is a tip I think will be very valuable for certain people. One big thing for me was having a space that's always available to perform at. Because when I was younger, we came from a real poor family. I had hardly any space to myself. I had this one little area of my desk, and I would put my keyboard up there to practice keyboard, right? And then I would have to take that down to put up the card stuff in the mirror and the mat and practice. And then if I wanted to do homework, I'd have to take that down and do my homework, right? See what I mean? There was this one spot I constantly had to clean off to do whatever it is I needed to do. And that will really hurt your inspiration, because you're inspired all of a sudden to practice. You get that motivation to say, you know what, I want to practice all day. And then you come around and you got a computer, books, food, and your lunch that you're about to eat, and other things all over the place. You got to clean all that off you're going to lose that motivation. So it was priceless for me when I first got my very first apartment that I moved into, got my own card room, the first card room. And it was the smallest bedroom in the place. And I got this table here. This is from, people ask me a lot where this is from. It's from 1800s from France. So I don't think you're going to get one. But I got it on eBay. I had it rebuilt, fixed it all up, re-glued and finished. It's walnut. It's beautiful. It's just the perfect size. It's not too deep. I got a huge 4x4 mirror on the wall over here. And you are not allowed to put anything on that table. Nothing, except for cards, which means I can be scrolling through Instagram and see some hotshot kid, in glasses doing some ridiculous card move, lost something.
So what a jack.
And I go, look at this kid, look at this guy right here. And that will get me right off my ass and come in here, and I'll spend 30, 45 minutes either working on that or something that's springboards from that. But think of how I could be inspired, but then not have any, what am I going to do? I need a table now, so that's the thing where I really felt
like remove the inertia, take away any of the obstacles that might stand between you and actually following.
And that was huge for me, having that first apartment where I had my own specific space that I could go in there, shut the door and say, this is my area. And I had huge improvement in those years, where similar to your problem where you just felt like you're missing that one thing. My second deal just suffered. I watched my bottom deal get better. I watched my second deal get better. There we go. It's my dog.
There it is.
Z, come here. Come on.
He did warn me.
Oh, no. That's my girl just came in. Okay. All right. So let's back up a little bit. The magic of TV. We're going to edit all this out, right? All right. So anyway, I saw my bottom deal get better. I watched my center deal get better. But my second deal just suffered. There was this problem. I just wasn't getting the right retention. And it was in those couple years that I noticed that when I devoted the time, because I had my own space, I just saw a huge improvement right away. And the next apartment, I took the whole bottle of medicine, and I had like 3 different places to practice. I had a spot in my basement that was for performing. I had a spot that was for creativity. And then I had a spot for practice and rehearsals. And I would sit in those areas and do what was designed to be doing at that area. And today it's the same thing, a new apartment, but downstairs is for filming things, up here is for practice. I have a reading spot. So it's just
You've got dedicated areas that you
Yeah,
can.
and that way, no matter what I'm inspired to do, I can sit down and at any time in the day. I don't have a day job. Last time I had a job, I was 18 years old. I worked at a bank, if you can believe that, a bank teller.
I can't. Yeah.
Hey, we're missing $250 again today.
I don't know what to tell you. Oh, it must be exaggerated.
I did not do well with the jobs there. I remember this guy came up to me and he was like, "All right, we're gonna need you to stay after and do all that paperwork back there." And I'm like, "Why don't you do that?" You know?
Right.
So I didn't. It didn't work. So anyway, the point I'm making is, even though it's a craft and it's a passion, you have to treat it like a job where you wake up every day and you say, how can I be better? What are the things I'm going to fix today that I need improvement on? And also, this maintenance. You can't just learn something and then shelf it. You have to bring this stuff back so that it's ready to be used whenever you need to use it. So that's a part of it. Creativity moving forward. It's a full-time job. In many ways, it's worse than your 9 to 5 because our jobs never stop. Yeah. It can be 4 a.m. and you get an idea and you don't get to go, I'll flush this out next week. You just sit down and you got to flush it out. So in ways
or you'll lose it, or you'll just like life is busy and there is plenty to distract. Like I was going to ask you, like, just as kind of a last point on it, where do you stand with like recording yourself or writing your stuff down, like whether it's inspiration or some of the flaws that you feel like you're trying to fix? Is that something you do? What is your process for that?
Yeah, actually, I have a book right here. I keep a running journal of all my flaws, and it's
pretty empty.
Yeah, there's still nothing in it.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
Poor bookbinder.
Yeah. Now,
if you were gonna do it, I was gonna do it. I've got one right here.
Now, I do have a creativity, a running Word document that I sub out every year. Okay. So 2017 notes, 2018 notes, 2019 notes that I have on my desktop all the time, so that anytime during the day I'll see something and I'll go, "Ooh, this is a good idea," or I'll be watching a movie and think of something, or reverie state stuff. I'll be driving home without, just driving home without thinking about anything, and brilliant card idea pops into my mind.
Right. Yeah.
And it's usually combining things. Oh, I never thought about this thing. Wait, these are kind of cool things. And then you swerve back out of the shoulder,
Yeah.
And get home and then write that in the thing, right? I'll come back to it later. So I write some notes there. And that's a running thing there. At my shows, I'll always have a small book with me for one-liners. I'll be doing a show and somebody gives me some jab or something like that, and I have a real quick, witty comeback for them. I'll forget that because it wasn't scripted. So right. I will write that down, or even better, they'll say something and I don't have a good comeback.
And so now you get to work on it.
Now I'm that guy that, 2 years later, driving in New Jersey to a gig, and I'm like, oh, I should have said that. That's what I should have said,
If I ever find that guy, I'm going to
But eventually, a couple of years later, or a year, whatever, months later, I'll come up with a much better comeback. And it really is something like out of Family Guy. I'm holding on to a grudge for 6 months from some guy at a show. But eventually I'll be driving, slapping the steering and go, that's what I should have said. Anyway, that goes into that, or I'll reread those missed comebacks and I'll reread that stuff. And I'm a different person now, 5 years later than I was when I did that show. So I'll have new things to possibly come back with. So I'll write down those updated scripted things, and you bet it's so rewarding, because now I've got an answer, and eventually someone's going to say something similar at the same spot in that trick, because the trick induces those types of, you can incite things.
That sort of response, from that.
Yeah, exactly. You can get that stuff out of them because we're all human and we're all going to react similar ways, and you're going to get somebody that feels like it's okay to speak up. And someone will walk right into that trap, and I'll be armed now with a much better comeback.
No one's taking you down there, bad boy. Yeah.
Oh, and now I've been doing this for a long time, which means not only do I have comebacks for every single spot throughout the whole show, I've got 10 to pick from in every single spot. So that's why my character is that invincible thing on stage, the ego-driven, crazy guy, because I know I'm packing. I got it. You come at me with whatever. I got 10 things for you, but we can do this all day, man.
Yeah.
Now it's not like I'm taking hecklers down. That's a whole different discussion. But what I'm saying is you have humorous responses to certain situations, and you seem like as far as the audience is concerned, you're coming up with this stuff right on the spot, and it's very
Yeah, where it's
special for them because
instantaneous.
yeah, they think this is all happening fresh, and it's a unique experience because you had to stop your show for this banter. And it feels like you're riffing, but they don't know that I've got a book.
Yeah, it's actually for you. It's the choose your own adventure books from the 90s.
It's just this 15 years worth of comebacks I'm throwing at you guys right now. So that is the process there for writing this stuff down. And then the other thing is, this is the price of the whole thing right here. Your journal is only as good as your ability to reread it. I will say that again. Your journal is only as good as your ability to reread it. So if you're taking notes and just putting them down and burying them in your computer and feeling like, oh, I took notes today, that doesn't mean anything. You need to go back and reflect and update, make changes. And I'll read things, I'll go, I'm a genius. I'm a freaking genius. I came up with this. Is brilliant. I came up with this in 2013 and I've never done anything with it.
Nothing going to the red book today. That's
yeah. So too perfect again.
Yeah, oh god damn it.
So I
setting the bar too high for the first few minutes.
You need to reread that stuff, and you will find just little gems that your brain isn't designed to hold on to all that stuff, because like you said, you think of things and they just dissolve with day-to-day life things. So to revisit those things is important. And the second best advice is, don't ever have those moments where you say to yourself, because I'm guilty of this, I'll say to yourself, wow, that is a game-changing idea. That changes everything. This idea is so good, I don't need to write this down because it's too good.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, you're like,
what the hell was that thing?
It was a thing. Now, why does your brain remember that you had the idea, but can't remember what the idea is?
Yeah, why can't walk you all the way back to that house?
Yeah, I hate that because I'll wake up and go, this morning I had I remember telling myself, like, this is going to change card magic forever if I do this.
Yeah.
And I just can't remember what the idea is. So regardless of how sleepy you might be or how much shit you have to do that day, just get that journal ready to always have it in the right place. Like mine's right on my desktop, and be prepared to take 5-10 minutes of notes, and with context. You know how many notes from 2007 I have that are like AA, KK, AA, arrow, 2, 3, 4, and then wow, underlined like 6.
Yeah, with the smiley face unicorn drawing.
Yeah, like this is the best idea you've had in years. And you're thinking to myself, what is AA, K? Oh, so obviously it's some sort of stack, but what is 2, 3, 4? Like,
yeah, you got nothing to. Yeah,
context,
you're describing like every personal lesson that I took all the way through like the 2000s, where I go back to the notes, and because we were rushing, I just did it, and then I didn't review it in time to add the context. Because sometimes,
that's
right,
a big one.
You know, like you said, if you're driving and you're writing on your knee, like you might not have time to go into the full story, but then as quickly as you can, go add the backstory.
Yeah, you really do have to add that context. I'm sure that I've lost several ideas that with both of those things, not writing it down quick enough, assuming that this is so good I won't forget it, or the missing context thing where my favorite part is when I have these little Post-its from hotels and things. It'll be like some hotel in San Francisco or something, and the stationery from there. And really at the bottom, it's like underlined, like game-changing idea, like do not forget. And there's just so many cryptic little messages on there that I have no idea how this happened. And another really bad one is having to resolve your own card tricks. You know, like I know that I got there. I know that I was able to do this much more efficiently. And now when I'm doing it, there's like, how did I get the cards from the middle to like, I got to do like 10 shuffles to do that. I know that the first time I came up with this, I didn't have to.
There was something more. Yeah, there was something more expedient.
Yeah, and I can just feel, I know my own style, so I know that I wouldn't have done all of this. And that's a really frustrating thing to have to resolve. That's where video comes into play really well. Jack Carpenter was a big inspiration for that. He videotapes everything. And what I used to do is just do nothing but notes, handwritten notes. And takes a long time. So Jack's got a great idea because it's turn the kit 2 minutes and you've got the idea sealed on tape and you just walk yourself through it. And I've had to refer to that quite a bit, where I say, just what I was talking to you, where I said, this has got to be a better way to do this. And I go back into the tape, watch it, and I say, you're brilliant. You're
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah. Again, now I must have
Again.
a red book.
And
I
it's
am
like,
too
it's
brilliant.
something so simple as like I was holding the deck face down, dealing the cards face down. And in this particular routine, after I deal the first 5 cards face down, I turn the deck face up, and the face up dealing is what moves the cards around or something. And I just forgot about turning the deck face up or something. And there's some really amazing subtle things that aren't moves. There's little subtleties that will help you reposition cards and move things around. And they're brilliant at the time, but they just fade out of your minds because there's so much context around that little moment.
Around that particular, that was one of the best things that I ever got, was one of those little clamps with the tiny tripods for my phone, because everyone's phone now has a freaking HD camera that can do photo and video. So any ideas that you have, you literally just pop out your phone.
You're one little click away from it. And also our lives are saved, because when I was growing up, you're right, I was writing things on a Starbucks napkin,
Right.
doing 85 miles an hour down I-95, writing A, K, K, arrow, two pharaohs in and out. And
the unicorn's especially hard to draw at 90 miles.
Yeah. And now you have text to talk. You can talk to text, so you can hit the button and just say what you want to say, and it's in the thing. It's just such a great thing to have your phone with you, especially pandemic now. It's difficult I'm not traveling anymore, but when I was traveling, I'm in an airport or in an Uber or something like that, and to be able just to take quick notes like that was really valuable.
Not bad. Not bad. Well, dude, thank you so much for all of this, for all the info, for demonstrating. That was really cool. And for showing us your empty journal. Because
everybody needs to get a big book that you can put your flaws into.
Yeah.
And maybe someday I'll use.
You've only ever had to buy one. Yeah, right. But that's right. Just real quick before we leave, if people wanted to study your work, if they wanted to get to know like your style and everything, where do they go? And then also, what other resources do you recommend for them on top of what you do?
Well, first of all, my website is Card Magic by Jason, and on there you can buy all my books and DVDs and notes and things like that. I also sell the mats, card accessories kind of stuff. We didn't get to talk about it, but in that shelf down there on the bottom is my 3-way mirror. That was a really big thing for me too, is when you practice directly across from the mirror, you tend to get artificial angles. Having the 3-way allows you to see what your spectators actually see. So it can be some eye-opening stuff there when you're working on a pass or something, saying, man, this thing looks great. Put the mirrors up and you're going, oh, this does not look
actually not. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Bill over here is going to see.
Yeah. Bill's all like, bro.
So you can go on there, and I have certain accessories that I really found valuable in my learning process, in addition to the books and DVDs and such. My Instagram is, all the stuff's Card Magic by Jason. So Facebook, Instagram, Card Magic by Jason is the handle. And on my Instagram is where the party is. I got away from Facebook a couple, like maybe last year, 2 years ago or so. It's just not the best platform anymore. You and I have talked privately about this. For some reason, I posted something about a bottom deal, and the first comment is a political comment.
Yeah, right.
And then a train wreck of just like,
it just all goes south from there. Yeah, right.
What is going on? So anyway, I really moved away from Facebook, so there's not much going on there anymore. But on Instagram, the interaction is correct, and you are like my inspiration for that. You've done an amazing job, and so I kind of used you as an inspiration there, and I've had some great success. And I'd like everybody to meet my dog.
Yeah, by the way.
So anyway, see, there he is.
There he is.
Right here. Now, and I have a new DVD that's about to come out live in London. Since the pandemic happened, I haven't had an opportunity to do any shows or come up with any new material. So I went back in time and bought the rights to one of my lectures, and I'm going to put that out. So it's a way to see me perform in front of a live audience. It's 300 people or something. So it's always interesting to watch that stuff too, because I'm on stage touching people and touching my face, and I'm watching, like, what are you doing?
Right. Get away.
It's such a bizarre thing to, like, I'm talking directly to that man's face right now. That's devastating. So it's interesting to watch, but it was a hell of a show, and I'm really proud about it. And so I did the DVD, this Live in London DVD, and then afterwards I'm doing something I don't think a lot of other, if anybody perhaps, but in Magic has done, where I'm doing a video commentary similar to a behind the scenes, like a director's cut and I'm walking you through my Magic Castle set of my internal monologue. Like, what am I thinking? What is every little thing I'm thinking about as I'm performing here? So I'm not talking about how to do the tricks. I'm talking about my audience management and all that, giving you kind of an insight, all my inner thoughts as I'm performing. So it was really fun to record. So that was an extra little bonus we're going to put on the DVD.
That's really cool.
And finally, the last thing is, since the pandemic started, I was performing a lot less. So, I mean, virtual shows are great, but they're just not, they don't compare to a live audience. So it's not really something that I'm pursuing as much as I see other people do. So what I have been doing is online teaching. And I put it out there that I offer lessons, and I was amazed at the response that I got. There was so many people that were just like, wait a minute, you teach? And I was, sure. So before the pandemic, I didn't pursue it. If someone came to me, I'd say, sure, we could, if you work at it, I'll show you some things. But like I said, once this whole thing started, I figured, let's try it and see what happens. And I got, within a few months, I just had a huge base of students, or roster of students to work with, and everybody's like monthly or bi-weekly. So it's just been an absolute pleasure to meet so many new people and have that thing that we're missing, that sessioning, that thing that
the interplay
that we lost. Yeah, the interaction we lost with other magicians. It's one thing to do shows, but to session and have ideas, and also to see growth in students is just great. They didn't have it. You talk to them for an hour, you see them next month, and they have it. To me, that's just the best thing ever. And
so if people wanted to do that, can they find that on your website, or do you need?
Yeah, you just go you just reach out to me anywhere, send me a DM, go on my website, shoot me an email or whatever, and just say, hey, I'm interested in lessons, and we can set something up.
Perfect. Dude, thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.